Grab your rods and tackle box, folks, as we dive into the wild world of fishing. Get ready for some laughs, some fish stories, and a touch of chaos as we wade into the deep waters of fishing wisdom. Our guides on this trip are a know-it-all, a guy who desperately needs a haircut, and a man named Sam. In this podcast, this motley crew shares their knowledge, their latest fishing antics, and probably get into more trouble than they bargained for. It's a podcast as unpredictable as the sport of fishing. If you love fishing, then this is the place to be, because in this podcast, every catch is a big one. Every story is a keeper, and the only thing more legendary than the tales is the trio delivering them. Welcome to the Bait Tank.
Hey, welcome to today's episode of the Bait Tank. So, sorry for technical difficulties. Did have some issues to start with, but we are here and we're doing good, and I hope everybody else is doing fantastic, having a fantastic weekend. Hope you're getting out some fish, doing some fishing. This will be done from the phone, so if there's any audio issues, I do apologize. It's just the way it's going to have to be today. But today, we're talking about alternative catfish fishing techniques, specifically some of the mainstream ones we're going to be covering, and as well, we have a guest joining us as well, specifically for jug fishing. It's going to be a good episode. Joining me, I'll get him in here, is Zach from Catfish Viking. He will not be video, it'll be just audio only due to where he is at currently. We do appreciate him being here. Zach, welcome in. How are you doing today, sir?
Tired, but I'm here.
Hey, all right. And long story short, computers suck sometimes. That's what it boils down to, right, Zach?
I have a feeling it's something to do with the settings that you messed with last time when I was over there.
That is very possible. I have not really touched my computer since then. I have been working like crazy, trying to get some fishing in here and there, so it has not been my priority like it probably should have been. But joining us as well tonight, I'll go ahead and bring them up here as well, is Randy and Lisa Swain. Welcome in, guys. Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Let me get you guys actually pulled up here. A little bit harder to do on the phone. Fat fingers and all, you know. Welcome in. Hey. All right. So they will be joining me tonight specifically for the second topic, but they definitely can help with the first topic, especially Randy, because let's just be honest here. He is older than me, and is wiser than me, and has had more life experience than me when it comes to certain things. And Lisa, his better half for sure, has been joining him in on those tasks as well. And she's definitely got some experience to share with us tonight.
Yeah,
So,
I heard you talking the other day about somebody being old, and they were like 49. So what does that make me?
ancient.
Older than old?
Normally I wouldn't say that, but you definitely brought it upon yourself, sir, with that kind of a question. Opened it up. Couldn't help myself. So let's talk catfishing. Well, first we'll go and let you guys introduce yourselves. Obviously, to know that you're Randy, and the beautiful lady to your left is, left on the screen is Lisa. Who are you guys? What do you guys do? And what got you into fishing?
Go ahead.
I've been fishing basically my whole life. Never catfished till I met him.
Well,
I'm known as a burrito catfishing lady.
For those who don't know, there's a very long story behind that. But for those, if you give us a quick summary on that, you're more than welcome to if you'd like.
I had toe surgery, and everybody decided that I needed a nickname for my toe. So they came up with a bunch of different nicknames. Anthony J. All Day decided to put a poll out, and the winner of the poll was Burrito. Yeah, it's actually funny. I got to go fishing with these guys recently, and they actually have a little plastic burrito they keep on the boat as a mascot. It's pretty funny. What about you, Randy? What got you into fishing?
I've been fishing since I was about 3 years old. Was going with my dad and my grandmother before then, and this is just a continuation of one of the greatest loves of my life.
So just for the sake of argument, because you already stated that you're older than 49, how old are you, Randy?
I just turned 59 2 weeks ago.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations. So you're telling me you have 56 years of fishing experience under your belt?
Me carrying the rod by myself and doing it.
I got you. All right. Well, let's see.
Pictures to back it up.
Hey, picture didn't happen, right? That's what they say anyway.
Right.
Photoshop.
It's Photoshop, exactly. Yeah, picture didn't happen unless Photoshop's involved. Exactly. All right. So if you are tuning to here from Facebook, thanks for stopping in. If you're on YouTube, thanks for stopping in. My name is Anthony. You've met Zach, the voice behind the screen with no picture. And then you've met Randy and Lisa Swain. Let's say hello to some people. Wabash Nate said, evening all. Hello, welcome in. Hunting and stuff. Said Yak, what is up? Skipjack Cindy's in here. Let's see who else. That's it currently. I do know there's a couple tournaments going on, so I didn't necessarily expect a huge crowd tonight, but we are being consistent posting the show like we said we would. Like I said, today's topic is going to be alternative catfishing techniques for the first half, and then specifically jug fishing, which is where these two will really shine in their knowledge and experience. So let's talk about alternative catfishing techniques. So obviously we have rod and reel. Probably the main three besides that are going to be limb lining, trot lining, and noodling. Specifically, without going into commercial techniques per se. I mean, obviously you can drag a net around and electro fish and all that other stuff too. But do either of y'all have experience in either of those other three main ones, noodling, limb lining, or trot lining?
Limb lining and trot lining. We used to eat everything we caught. It's unless, as long as they were smaller fish, we've never kept big fish. But I've done it all.
I got you. So if obviously I can just Google the definition, but since you're already here and you're willing to talk about it, let's have you explain the difference between limb lining and trot lining.
Limb lining is just that you tie a line to a limb that hangs out over the water, and you'll put a bait on it. Sometimes some people put weights on them to hold them down. Others don't. You've got a bait sitting there swimming anywhere from the surface of the water to however deep the water is. Trot lining, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. You can go bank to bank with a line with drops on it and hooks on there. And it depends on your state as to what number of hooks you're allowed. But, most of the time when you trot line, you fish, we always fished with live bait.
Sure.
And trot lines we would have 150 hooks on them and run them, and the hooks are spread out 6 feet apart. So, they were some long lines, and we would run 6 or 8 a night.
That's a lot. One's a lot of hooks to deal with in the dark, but two, it's a lot. And in case you guys didn't catch that, he like you said, trot lines, you're going to have a ton of hooks. Typically speaking, limb lines, you're only going to have 1, maybe 2. I have looked at some things. I've read some articles where people were talking about limb lining from older articles where they actually were doing a trot line setup, but they were doing it literally from one tree to the next. And they called that limb lining also because it was tied all the limbs rather than with weights or whatever. But that's still technically a trot line based, at least on Tennessee's definition. Anything that's got more than, I forget what the minimum number of hooks is, but after so many hooks and after so long of a length, up to a certain length, that's considered a trot line. And obviously there's intricacies and etiquettes when it comes to that kind of thing. I myself, I've been kayak fishing, dragging from a kayak, and I hooked into a trot line just because it wasn't marked. Obviously, that's a no-go.
I've done that plenty of times, pulling planer boards.
Yeah, that's not fun, and it's hard to get your stuff back. Especially if you get one that's got a bunch of fish on it, or worse yet, it's a bunch of dead fish, because whether they lost it or whether they just didn't check it in 2 weeks or whatever, there's inevitably going to be fish on them. Whether they got snagged or whether they actually went off the bait, and it can really be a problem. But if you're doing everything correctly and the way you're supposed to, then it's never really a problem. And it's definitely a lucrative harvesting technique. Obviously, we always promote catch and photo and release here, with the exception of a few to eat. But If you're into that kind of thing, keeping all you can catch, like you guys said you were in the past, and when you were a kid and whatnot, then obviously that's the best way to go is with some of these other techniques.
It was either keep the fish or go without. So
yeah, exactly. And like I said,
we have never been a family that caught fish and gave them away, or caught fish and threw them away, or hunted and not. If we harvest a fish or animal, it's got one purpose as far as we're concerned, and that's for food.
right. We do have some questions for you off the bat. You were talking about the one that had 6 feet in between each hook. 100 and stuff wants to know how long was that trot line, if you had to guess.
400 feet.
400 feet. Holy smokes.
We fished anywhere from 5 feet of water to 100 feet of water.
And that's another thing too. That point right there, you are able to cover so much water with these techniques. Obviously, if you do different techniques from a boat, if you're dragging and suspending and fishing under a float, if you do all 3 of those, then you can cover the similar amounts of water. But man, just that one. Recently we went on that jug fishing trip together. That was insane how much water you could cover in just a small amount of time.
You can definitely work and find fish quick.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. Also, I had never done it before, and it definitely opened my eyes. Just to how even we didn't keep any. We were catch, photo, releasing those also. It's just a different way to fish. I know it's been referred to as lazy man's fishing in the past. From some people, I've also been told it's unethical and unsportsmanlike and all this other stuff. But fishing's in the name for jug fishing, at least. Limb lining and trot lining, yeah, those might be a little more commercial-esque style techniques, but you still got to fight the fish. You still got to plan where you put your baits. It's still fishing. You're still having to do stuff that's it's no different than rod and reel. It's just a different presentation of bait, really.
Yeah.
See, I've never run a trot line, but when me and Amanda got together, I'll just put it this way. She rescued me off the riverbank. I was living on the river, and my source of food was limb lines.
Mm-hmm.
That's if I didn't catch anything, I didn't eat that day.
That's fair. And like I said, there's definitely arguably no better way to catch food than some of these other techniques, literally because you can cover so much water, or because you have so much bait out there to get them. And that brings me to the next topic, I guess. There are some differences. Again, we talk about the fact that there's a lot of different hooks, a lot of different lengths, and where kind of this stuff gets put, like you mentioned, trot lines can be from bank to bank. They can be from a tree to a weight out in the water. They can literally just be 2 weights on the end in the water. Yeah. You completely cover different sections, channels, creek mouths, whatever. But with the yo-yo, you really are, you're really doing just vertical. But there is something to make. You were talking to me about it the other day, called a yo-yo. Do you want to kind of go over what a yo-yo is and explain that?
A yo-yo is a spring-loaded, triggered mechanism. Where's that camera? You've got a wheel. You've got a plate on the back. The wheel is spring-loaded, and it'll have a trigger up here where your line comes out and goes through a trigger and down. And whenever that line is tapped, that trigger releases, and it's spring-loaded. It'll set the hook on the fish.
Now, can you set the depths with the yo-yo?
You can set the depth wherever you want it.
I got you.
You can set it literally about every 3 or 4 inches.
That's just the width of the wheel, I guess. How many wraps?
Yeah, each wrap is 3 or 4 is probably 6 inches, 8 inches, and you've got 2 triggers on it or 2 notches on it, and however much line you can put on that yo-yo is how deep you can go with it.
I got you. Hunting stuff called out. Lisa said, try and talk over everybody, okay? She's definitely a quiet one this evening. But if you had to guess, between limb lining and trot lining, we'll discard jug fishing for now. Like I said, I know we're going to talk about that later. But between trot lining and limb lining, do you think one of those is better for bigger fish, or do you think they're about the same?
Personally, limb lining is better for big fish.
Is it because the baits are further apart and it's a little less conspicuous, or do you think it's because it's less noisy, or what?
You fish different water. With a trot line, you're going, most of the time we fished bank to bank in a cove.
Okay.
With the limb lines, we fished rock bluffs, and we fished a lot deeper water. You fish deeper. You fish more of a creek, of a river channel or a creek channel. You fish, that's right at the bank, and let's face it. Whenever you're fishing out, going across the cove, and you've got it anchored through the, weighed down through the middle, you'll be down 40 or 50 feet, and you'll get some bigger fish. You get some bigger fish, but whenever the bigger fish are right on the channel coming up at night to feed, and you've got a line that's right there in that channel all the time, you fish with bigger baits. Trot lines, we'd use a 4-inch bluegill, 5-inch, but every limb line has a bigger bait on it.
What was the biggest bait you ever used on a limb line?
Probably a 10 or 12-inch channel cat.
Oh wow, okay. Use catfish for bigger catfish, huh?
Bluegill that are hand size.
I got you. Now, I'm assuming with the bigger baits, you're using bigger hooks. But on trot lines, if you're trying to get food, I'm assuming those are smaller hooks typically.
We're using probably 5 to 7/0 hooks on the trot lines, and use 9, 10/0 hooks on the 8 or 10/0 hooks on the limb lines.
I got you. And obviously, I know with jug fishing you use circle hooks still. Are you using circle hooks on these trot lines and stuff too, or are these more? I know the pre-made bought ones you can buy like Walmart or J hooks. But did you guys ever?
That's what we always used, was J hooks.
That's because you're keeping rid of their food, right?
Yeah, and also we didn't know nothing about circle hooks back when I was a kid.
I mean, that's fair. That was over half a century ago. So sorry, man. I can't help it.
I lay it out to you.
Elders,
I soft pitch it. It's your opportunity.
That's funny.
Bobby. So nice.
922 Crappie Barbecue says, "Hey, Randy." Also says, "Oh no, it's that Lisa lady. What was I thinking?" Hey, we're here to present information to people, and
Watch it, Nick.
we have a plethora of knowledge sitting in front of us on the screen. 56 years worth of knowledge of actually fishing knowledge. Obviously, he said he was fishing with his grandparents before then as well. But yeah, I'm really struggling today. I'm tired. It's been a long day. But so let's talk about noodling for a second. Have you guys ever noodled?
I have not.
Are you opposed to noodling? Obviously, you're not. You say you want to try it. Lisa, are you going to try noodling someday?
I am not blindly sticking my hand in a hole.
That is exactly how I feel. There is too many things I could bite off my fingers.
I went noodling one time. The first hole I went to, stuck my hand in there, felt something hard, jumped back in the boat, said, "I'm not doing it again." It felt like a turtle shell. I was done.
Yeah, I definitely, I'm not opposed to it. For those who want to do it, that's all on you. I just know, or have met too many people named Stumpy or, Two-Finger Jack or whatever.
we used to use limb lines and bait them for turtles. And whenever you get a turtle on a limb line, he's going under the bank if he can, and you just have to reach under there and drag him out by the tail.
Jeez.
Hey,
Yeah,
I grew up.
I've had snapping turtle because I caught one on a limb line before. It was pretty good.
Snapping turtle, soft-shell turtle are excellent eating.
I have been told that. I have yet to have turtle. It's not on my list of things that I've tried for sure. I've tried alligator. I'm pretty sure I remember correctly. I've tried snake, but I have not tried turtle yet.
Turtle is better than either one of those.
Okay, I'm a pretty big fan of gator, so that'd be hard to beat.
I ate my first gar because that's all I caught one day on a limb line.
I would eat a gar. I've been told those are actually really good.
The tenderloins out of a gar, they call them hillbilly lobster. You boil them in lemon juice and sugar, just like it with, added a cup of lemon juice or 2 lemons and a cup of sugar in a pot of boiling water. You throw that tenderloin in there, pull it out and eat it, dip it in butter just like you do lobster. And I'm telling you, it is good.
See, I historyed mine over a campfire, and it was good.
922 Greg Barbecue. Yes, that is Viking you here. He is not able to join us on film tonight, so he is our consciousness speaking to us.
I am your conscience.
Conscience, thank you.
Conscience in the world.
Yes. So, Bosch Nate wants to know, what are your thoughts on how to fish shallow water with some of these oddball techniques?
If you've got 2 feet of water, you put a limb line in it. The fish will come up shallow feeding at night. And, we used to bait, and you catch some during the day. We used to bait every morning, run the lines every morning, and you had to be there at daylight because at daylight they start trying to get away. But we would rebait every morning. We'd run the lines first, and we'd go back and rebait and come back. And that afternoon, right at dark, we would run and rebait again. And that's on trot lining and limb lining. If you've got a river that's got 6 feet of water in it, tie to one end of one bank, go out a third of the way, and tie a 4 or 5 pound weight anchor like on your line to hold that line down. Go the other third and anchor it again, and then go the other bank. Bait that sucker up, and you'll have catfish. If there's catfish in there, you can catch them. You'll catch them.
The specific area he's looking at is 2 to 10 feet. So yeah, he assumed it was shallow water. I agree with Randy on this. I definitely do go shallower. I would think if you're doing anything less than probably 5 feet, you definitely wouldn't want to do a trot line, just because your boat's barely going to clear it. Or in most cases, your boat's just barely going to clear it with that motor and everything. So
we have, as kids growing up, we have run trot lines wading. We got some pretty good sized creeks that we could wade growing up, and we have put lines out and waded the creeks and run them out of the way.
How many hooks you guys end up stepping on?
Never.
I definitely would think that you would at some point do that. We're gonna fix something here.
You go to the bank, you pick your line up, and you're walking the line across the creek. You're out in 4 or 5 feet of water, 6 feet of water, but you still got your line up. Your hooks are up a foot below the surface. So, ain't no
knowing Anthony's luck, he would step on a hook though.
You come close a couple times today.
Yes, I have. Yes,
the knee.
It happens. That's for sure.
Taken right there.
Wabash Nate, one thing that's always been a issue, I don't care whether you're limb lining or whatever, when I'm fishing, I bass fish for years. Bluegill fish. People leave their dead gum limb lines hanging, and you get up close to the bank and you can get into one of those. You know, hanging limb lines are a nightmare, and the limb lines will work better in the smaller water, but you got to find them where they got over the water, and watch when one's hanging out over that water, it can eat you up. And Bobby's old enough, 922 crappie barbecue. He's old enough to know what I'm talking about with this stuff too.
I got you. Is he over half a century old as well?
The only difference is you can catch a fish. Bobby has to call rent a fish.
Oof. Oof.
Oh,
A little bit of smack talk on tonight's show.
he's got a call to get a loaner fish.
I got you.
I understand that with me being in y'all's situation and Anthony.
Don't start. You have to bring it up every single episode, don't you? For those who don't
bring it
know,
up sometimes.
Zach was fishing a tournament, and I was down there visiting with him. So I hopped in my kayak. I'm like, I'm gonna fish next to him. Why not? Spend some time together. He can fish a tournament. I'll catch fish. If not, cool. This man proceeded to catch. It was a numbers tournament. We were fishing in front of the Meow Mix cat food plant. This man proceeded to catch at least 15 to 20 fish 3 feet away from me. And I'm using the same bait, same rigs, not catching jack squat. And that's what he's referring to. So it's definitely called fishing, not catching. And there are definitely some examples in my life that prove that.
I can't let you live it down. You'll do it to me one day.
It's fair. Sigo, I do not have anything against people with half a century experience. I applaud them for that, and I look to them for knowledge. As a fisherman, I'm always looking for ways to improve my skills and to try new things. And they definitely have some far-fetched ideas I would never thought of with my young mind. Not that I'm getting any younger. Let's just be honest here. It's just the way it works. What are you laughing at, Lisa?
Bobby's comment.
Bobby's calling her out. Keeps calling her out.
He missed what I said.
No, okay.
He can't do two things at once.
I got you. Bobby says he has 51 years experience. That's cool, man. Like I have like 28. So
I think catfishing, I have 8. Trophy catfishing, I've got.
you know what? That's
4.
a good thing too. If I'm not mistaken, didn't you just tell me that you guys actually have never catfish rod? Not consistently catfish rod and reel fished, other than when you started back in December. Is that correct?
Yep.
That's insane. We're fixing to go to our second topic here shortly. I know this has probably been, you said it's your main technique. Lisa, I know you haven't been with him the whole entire time for the half a century. But so
You keep bringing it up too.
I'm going to. I have to. It's just the way it works. But I know when you met him, jug fishing was actually the only way you were fishing with him for catfish. So you have at this point more experience with that as well. So let me see. I had a list of questions here. Let me see if I missed any, because we definitely went through a few. All right.
Hey, yeah, Anthony.
Sir.
Her PB flathead on jugs is 23.4 pounds.
It's a good sized flathead.
Yeah.
I have her beat by half an ounce or half a pound on rod and reel.
Have you got her beat on rod and reel?
I have no. I'm talking about flathead. My personal best 24 pounds. But until that trip that you guys and I went on, I had never jug fished. So
we're gonna get her. We're gonna blow her PB flathead out of the water in the next month.
I hope so. And I hope that it can be done naturally on altered camera. And
yeah, we don't have the editing capabilities as some people we know.
Unlike
I got you.
Photoshop nothing, okay?
I got you.
Mine's on
For those that don't know, Lisa caught a very large blue catfish a while back, and I joked with her about it being photoshopped. There's no way she caught it or could lift it up, because I don't know if you guys have ever met Lisa or seen Lisa stand up. She's a very, very tiny woman. And that was a very, very big fish. So I applaud her. But yeah, that was a huge fish. But it definitely made for some interesting looking picture.
And it was on camera. So
Yes, it was. If you guys check out her channel, which I will get those links for you posted by the end of the video, you definitely could check those out. There are some clips of her with that fish. It is pretty cool, for sure. My wife just barely has her beat a couple weeks later, but it was both the ladies currently have the household records for when it comes to blue cats. So pretty crazy.
I think they've got me beat too.
I think they do, because yours is only what, 60 something?
68.
Yeah, they both got you beat. Lisa, how big was yours again, Lisa?
74.
74 pounds, and James was 77. So yeah, they got you beat, Zach.
I'll still stick with my flathead of 57.
That's fair.
Never
9
seen your body, you're lying.
922
He's lying.
922 Crappie Barbecue said he's caught a 34-pound shovel head on rod and reel, which is awesome. My personal best was a 33. But that's another good point. Talking about some other species here. You guys, limb lining, obviously you're using live bait. What is the craziest species you caught while trying to go for catfish using a limb line or a trout line? Like you wouldn't have expected it.
You know, we catch a lot of gar. We catch turtles, largemouth bass, smallmouth.
Pretty much everything's fair game because using a bait they can catch everything, right?
Yeah.
Now, I have heard from people in the past that they use some far-fetched baits. I've heard, you hear the normal stuff. You hear bluegills, suckers, cut bait, goldfish, shiners, all the bait fish species. But what's the craziest thing you guys have ever used? Because for me, the craziest I've ever heard of was ivory soap.
We used soap a little bit, but for Baltimore Orioles, a bird, black bird with red wingtips. They're notorious for building their nest in cattails.
Okay.
And we have you take a baby bird out of the nest and hook it between the wings.
This seems a little cruel here.
Right on top of the water.
That's awful.
That is absolutely a fantastic bait.
Wow.
But you don't. That was a half a century ago that we could do that.
I got you. Yeah, I don't think it's a legal bait nowadays, but that is definitely an interesting one, and definitely the craziest one I've heard. I would have never thought to use a baby bird. I don't know if I could do it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a big softy, I guess. They're bait already, right? But a bird,
I think the weirdest thing I've ever used was a rat.
I think it's that would be a little bit different. I think I probably could do with a rat.
Yep.
We were on the riverbank and the rats were running up stealing our bait that we had cut up and left on the rock. I ended up smacking one with a net and threw it out.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right?
I've had them get in my boat before and chase them out of the boat into the water and see them get ate.
Jeez.
But I've never fished with that. But you fish with chicken, you fish with, any kind of meat that you can get a hold of, you can fish with it.
Well, you hear about the normal stuff. You hear hot dogs, you hear chicken,
yeah,
like all the other shrimp, bacon. I don't know why you waste bacon. If you let it go bad in the freezer, it means you weren't eating it, which is shame on you. But chicken can go bad. You can buy chicken bad at the store. Chicken livers, beef liver. I'm sure you can use chicken gizzards for that matter. All that crazy stuff. Of course, nowadays gizzards are expensive. I don't know if you ever guys have noticed that, but it used to be gizzards by the pound for like 50 cents, seemed like, and now they're like considered a delicacy, I guess.
Yep.
Same with livers. Livers will went up in price too.
everything related to a chicken has gone up recently. I mean, eggs were what, $8 a carton for a little while there. Seemed like. But yeah, so for those who are joining in, thanks for tuning in so far. We've been talking about alternative techniques for catfishing. We've been kind of avoiding the second subject, which is going to be jug fishing. We'll be going on that here after the break. Joining us is Randy and Lisa Swain. They were helping us tonight talking about limb lines, trot lines, alternative baiting methods, alternative baits for that matter, including some really oddball, far-fetched ones. Yeah, so we're going to take a couple-minute break, get some water, use the restroom, all that good stuff, and then we'll go back into our second topic, which is going to be jug fishing, which is Randy and Lisa's forte in the world of fishing. So you guys are going to have about 60 seconds or so. We're going to replay this intro video, and we'll be back very soon and go on to jug fishing.
Grab your rods and tackle box, folks, as we dive into the wild world of fishing. Get ready for some laughs, some fish stories, and a touch of chaos as we wade into the deep waters of fishing wisdom. Our guides on this trip are a know-it-all, a guy who desperately needs a haircut, and a man named Sam. In this podcast, this motley crew shares their knowledge, their latest fishing antics, and probably get into more trouble than they bargained for. It's a podcast as unpredictable as the sport of fishing. If you love fishing, then this is the place to be, because in this podcast, every catch is a big one. Every story is a keeper, and the only thing more legendary than the tales is the trio delivering them. Welcome to the Bait Tank.
Welcome back. That was perfect timing there. For those of you just joining in, welcome in. My name is Anthony from the Bait Tank. I also am from Yakshire Outdoors. Not on screen is Zach from Catfish Viking, one of my co-hosts. And our third co-host was unfortunately unable to join us tonight. He had surgery this week on his leg because he ended up, for those who don't know that, he's a amputee for the knee down. And he fell and broke the piece that it connects his leg to his leg. So he had to go get that adjusted and fixed. So he's gone this week. Hopefully back for next episode. But also joining us are Lisa and Randy Swain. We're moving on to topic number 2 for the night, which is jug fishing. So let me put you guys on the bigger screen here so I can see. Yeah. Excuse me. All right, so obviously, Randy, you've been fishing for forever, as discussed in the previous section. You've been fishing for over half a century. Lisa has been fishing since she was a kid as well, but she is not got that much experience fishing. What convinced you to get her into jug fishing as opposed to rod and reel fishing when y'all met?
The enjoyment I get doing it with my dad and my daughter and my son-in-law and my son. You know, we can load up 4 or 5 people on the boat and go.
Sure.
And so that's what we've been doing. I mean, we've been fishing for the fun and catch and release just about everything for the last 10 years. And we catch some good fish. Good size fish, but I could take her and my daughter and son-in-law and 2 grandbabies out on the boat. And
now you do. Yeah, I think a lot of people think about when they think about alternative fishing techniques, they think about some little old man in a john boat. You don't use a john boat though. You want to talk about what boat you use for this?
We've got a 24-foot pontoon boat.
The thing is massive.
And we've taken the front seats out of it and moved lawn chairs in where we got more room. We can fold the chairs up, the lawn chairs up against the side of the boat. And we've got a 70-pound thrust trolling motor on the front of it. We've got rod holders all the way around it.
It is a fishing machine. I can tell you that.
And it's got some more work to be done on it, but
Hey, but it definitely gets the job done. As the last trip I went with you guys on proved. Do you want to go ahead and explain kind of what jug fishing is, or I guess how it was for you when you started, and what maybe you've transformed it into since then for yourself?
When we started jug fishing, old milk jugs, we saved every milk jug that you could find, 2-liter Coke bottles, any kind of plastic bottle, a Clorox bottle. Clorox bottles were great because they used to have the little handle on the spout of them.
Oh, and they had to shake their caps too. I'm sure that helped them some too.
Yeah. And, anything, anything that had a screw-on cap. I mean, a 1-liter Coke bottle ain't the best that there is, but a 2-liter, tough to beat. And started out, we were fishing. We'd put a hook on a piece of line that was 4 or 5 feet long, throw it out, and that, wherever it floated, wherever the wind blew it, that's where it went. And whether you was fishing with live bait or cut bait, it didn't make any difference. And my nephew was talking to us one day at a holiday, and he was talking about the way he had started doing it, and I made some adjustments. We now fish we take a pool noodle, cut it into thirds. You can buy pool noodles 3 different sizes. They're about a 2-inch, 4-inch, and 6-inch. Yeah, I guess that was close to 6-inch. I got one over in the living room floor. We put up to 40 feet of line on them with a 4-ounce sinker, at least a 4-ounce sinker on the bottom. We come up a foot to 2 feet, maybe 3. And, we set the bait straight on the bottom, and we wrap the line and back twist the line to keep it from unrolling. We set it whatever depth we want, but we set that sinker on the bottom, and you'll sit there, and sometimes they bite good, sometimes they don't bite at all, and sometimes they're aggressive, and sometimes you don't have a clue that they bit.
That's fair. I mean, if you're using a pool noodle, obviously a smaller fish is not going to be able to move it around as much. Especially if like you said, you went from having a fixed length, which I think is what most people think about. Like you said, 4 to 5 feet under a jug and let it drift and blow away or whatever. Anybody's fished to the dam, has seen anybody use jugs. That's definitely what you see, is them just throwing them out and intercepting them downstream. But you guys now do, I call it an adjustable jug. After I saw it, I was like, like you said, up to that 40-foot line, you can fish any depth in between that. To me, that is super intelligent. A lot of people associate catfish with being either the bottom feeders or at least predators that go up towards the bait. So definitely having that off the bottom a little bit, but being close to the bottom, I think, is definitely key. And you guys have proven it with fish pictures I've seen of you guys catching in the past. You guys have caught some really, really big fish on that. Like you mentioned, Lisa's flathead, 23.5 pounds was on that. Although you never did mention to me, what was your biggest fish on a jug?
61 pounds.
61
pound blue.
Now, just to put into perspective, folks, remember this is a jug with a string on it, or a noodle with a string on it. It is not rod and reel. There is no drag.
It's 100% arm.
100% arm. If a fish is pulling too hard, you get tired, you just have to let go of the jug and let the fish wear out some more. That's your drag. And obviously, if you're fighting in current, it makes it harder for you. But it is 100% you and your arm, or that noodle and that string. There is no in between. It is definitely a different way to fish. For me, it gets the adrenaline going a little bit. It kind of reminds me of like when you suspend fishing from a kayak. You feel everything. A rod normally absorbs some of the. You still feel the pull, don't get me wrong, but it kind of absorbs some of that shock. But getting that full shock experience is definitely something worth checking out for sure. When we went fishing with them, Mrs. Yak and I went the other day. She caught. That was probably, it was only probably what, 16 pounds, 14 pounds, the big fish, something like that. But yeah, she by no means is a very strong individual, but she almost had to throw the noodle back because it was something insane. But she's been talking about it since we came home, how awesome it was. So and she definitely wants to try it again at some point. It's been cool for sure. Don't mind the cat. I have a cat that's meowing over here like crazy. Hopefully you guys can't hear it on the screen. But so if you, let's see here. Obviously, besides the jug and the line and the hook that's on the jug, what would be some other basic equipment you'd recommend for somebody that's jug fishing or thinking about it?
If you ask me a question, I'm gonna be away for a second. My cat just went into labor. She just dropped a kitten.
Oh, maybe it's your cat that I hear.
We use some kind of weight. Spark plug works good if you ain't got sinkers.
Sure.
Your hook. I use a lighter nylon line. You can get nylon line that you can't even get it through the eye of the hooks if you wanted to. You can't get it through the eye of the sinker, much less the eye of the hook. But I generally use a 40 or 50 pound line because again, you've got some give to you, and you got the noodle, and that's all you need.
Right.
One thing that you think about, and I recommend before you put them in the water, is putting your name and phone number on them, because you have to identify who owns that noodle in the state of Tennessee.
Right.
We have gone and we have reflective strips around one end of our noodle. The line is tied to the other end. And if you're out there running them at night, you hit that reflective tape, and that noodle standing up just a little bit going through the water, that reflective tape will show up for a half a mile.
I believe it.
We also use glow sticks. These little glow sticks about yay long.
You just stab them in the end of the noodle.
That you break, you stick them in the end of the noodle, and you can see a blue one better than you can see a yellow one.
I believe it.
And you can see them suckers a long way off. They'll glow. It'll just be a glowing spot out on the water.
Right.
And you can that. Other than that, unless you're talking about my fancy pickup tool.
I was referring to the fancy pickup tool. I think that's definitely something that people should consider, for sure.
I don't like bending over or getting down on the deck to try to reach down and grab a pole noodle. And I don't know whether you noticed earlier that day that I had another specialty pole in the back of the boat that I used whenever I dropped the anchor.
I did not see that one.
It's about a 3 or 4 foot pole. And but I like the longer one so that I can reach out without having to bend over. I've got about a 7 foot tree that I cut off the bank, trimmed the bark off of it, put 3 screws in the angled in at the bottom, and that way you can just take that, run it underneath that jug, pick up that line, and you ain't got to bend over to do it.
For those who have seen The Walking Dead, it reminds me of the bat that the main guy has, and just a bat with a bunch of nails in it. That's the first thing I thought of when I saw it. Now, I'm not going to say that Lisa swinging it at me made me think that, but it definitely may have had some influence with that. But
I did not.
Definitely, I'm not. There was no pick, so we could say maybe it didn't happen. I haven't photoshopped that one yet. So it definitely some sort of tool to pick those up. I mean, you can use a gaff, you can use a net. I'm sure to get the noodle. I mean, it would be a little harder with a net probably because the line will want to pull it back out unless you had weights in the noodle itself. I've seen some noodles that are made of PVC pipe that are weighted in also to make them stand up straight rather than laying sideways.
I I'd like to address that because I was thinking about that a few minutes ago. I have tried pool noodles just about every way you can imagine. We've put the PVC through the pool noodle and capped both ends with weights in it and everything else that you can imagine. For me, my catch ratio and in my catch ratio dropped probably 50% whenever I put the weights in it, because when that stands up, you got that weight hitting that bottom and it's thumping. And for some reason, I don't know whether it throws slack in the line or what, but I went back to what you saw the other day. We're tying a noodle straight, or we're tying the line. I take a coat hanger and stick through that noodle, tie it on there and wrap it on that noodle and forget about it. That noodle will stand up, let you know there's fish there most of the time.
Yeah, definitely was effective. We ended up with 10 fish in about 3 hours.
Yeah,
something like that. It was pretty insane, really, and the amount of water we covered, because in that 3 hours, say if you went by the normal standard 15 to 20 minute rule for changing spots, that would have been 9 spot changes. That's not including driving to the area even, so less than that, probably like 7 or 8 spot changes maybe. But we went to the spot, the main area. We put noodles in spot 1, spot 2, spot 3, fished a little bit, went back to the bank to get bait, and came back in that 3 hours. So that's another thing. That run to get more bait and come back would have cut into the fishing time too. So you were able to cover way more water with those noodles, because you could have some deep, some shallow. And on top of that, you were using the fish finder to find the holes to drop the baits in. You weren't, if we were fishing from a boat and we were fan casting, you're going to find one hole, post up on it, or one area near something and try to hit it with all the rods, right? But you were literally like pinpointing these areas, and you were like, hey, here's a hole here, 6 feet, here's another hole. Hey, here's this hump. There's a stump here, we'll put one here. There's a stump 10 feet over here, we'll put one there. The accuracy of where you could for bait placement, I was actually like, it was just like, why not? Makes total sense to me. I mean, you're putting it right there. You're able to put one. You could drop it on fish. Doing it that way, you could drop it within a couple feet of a fish. Like I said, right in the middle of a tree stump, because you use a 50-pound nylon line. You're not too worried about it getting stuck in a tree. You can get most of it out for the most part. You were talking about some times where you had some that were stuck under docks, which wouldn't be terrible to get back out, especially if they're rounded posts as opposed to square posts, or those ones that have all the crisscrosses are kind of annoying, probably. But
the hard part is whenever you get a big fish that runs under them, and you run in behind him, and then he run out the other side, and he gets to the next one before you can get around to him.
Sure.
Around, he comes back through it, and they will drag underneath. They'll run underneath the crosses, and they'll get hung up under there. Sometimes that presents a problem.
I believe it.
There is this summer when you come up, I'm going to take you to a hole where that I've lost 30 noodles with big enough fish that they're run underneath trees and brush in the water and disappear, and you never see them.
Geesh. I hear Zach's back. I hear the kitten.
Yep.
Or at least he swung by the camera for a second. Lisa, do you have anything to add so far? You've been awful quiet, other than in chat, possibly threatening people.
2 black ones already. She tried to have them, the kittens, on me. It was very weird.
I'm sure it was. But Lisa, do you have anything to add so far? No? Okay. All right. Now, your jug specifically, like you said, you run 50-pound nylon cord. You run up to 40 feet of line on it, but the last section is the kind of the important part. You run a I didn't check to see what size sinker it was, but you run a fairly heavy bank sinker,
Yeah.
either a foot or 2 foot, depending on which pool noodle you grab, with a circle hook on it. And you do use circle hooks, which, obviously for catch and release angling's as ideal as you can get. And some people wouldn't think about it, but that pool noodle does have enough pressure to be able to set that hook in the corner of the mouth. There was only, I think there was 2 fish the other day that weren't hooked in the corner of the mouth.
Yeah.
And that was it. I mean,
and they were hooked. They weren't hooked down in the mouth. They were hooked on
right. It was still right behind the tooth patch or in the bottom lip. So yeah, it definitely did what it was supposed to do. But is there anything else in particular you do to prepare the jugs before you go out? Like I know you kind of have them all rolled up and you had them all in a 35-gallon tote, which was very convenient to be able to just move in and out for sure. So the biggest thing, honestly, I guess the biggest struggle we had was getting the bait on them fast enough. I know Lisa was baiting them and I was dropping them. I was dropping them poorly for that matter. We'll go over that in a minute. But if I think the only way to really get it to go faster would be to you had to, if you were changing spots, then it would be to bait them as you went, or maybe have some extra ones made up and have them baited while you're waiting for the other ones to go off, maybe. But really, it was actually a really efficient system. You got anything to add to that?
Fishing. Talk about having some set back that's already baited. That is another patch of floor space that you got to take up to do that. But also, your bait doesn't stay as fresh because the sooner you cut it and hit the water with it, the better off you are.
Sure.
And you get more than. It wasn't bad. The fish weren't biting that day real good that we were out there. But
I don't know, 10 fish in 3 hours, I think still pretty good day.
When the fish are going good, you can't handle more than 30 jugs at a time. Because, I mean, you're leaving one jug and going to another one, and you're watching the third one over here that's got a fish on it over here. Whenever things are fired up and you're on them right.
I got you. We already went over bait. You pretty much use anything you use for any other kind of rod and reel fishing. I know that day we pretty much used cut bait, but you can very easily use live bait. Is there any safety precautions that you might not think about with jug fishing that you don't necessarily have to have a problem with other types of fishing? Other than tripping over floor space?
Floor space is it.
Well, that was only you tripping on floor space that day. Not once.
Not
twice.
Twice.
Yep, three times. And the sad part was there was nothing on the floor when it happened.
Clumsy.
Yeah, that was me for sure. I almost went overboard 3 times.
Very much.
Yep. Just to say goodnight to some people I know. Retired Rick said he's swinging by to say hello and goodnight. Adventure in America, welcome in. Mrs. Adventure, welcome in. Hunting and Stuff is still with us. Skipjack Cindy, welcome in. 922's been here the whole time, and is going strong in the chat. Thanks for that, sir. Let's see. Yeah, he specifically did the thing that you did about wait till you have 4 jugs that are going out and they start hooking up as fast as you can throw them in. Wolfsten's in, welcome in, says, hey, y'all. Hope you're doing well, sir. We were talking about jug fishing. If you didn't catch that part already. Let's see. Is there an ideal condition for jug fishing, or is it kind of a universal, you can just do it whenever type of thing?
Well, the day that we done it, it wasn't bad. It was 3 or 4 mile-an-hour winds. I've done it in 10, 12 mile-an-hour winds. It works fine. You do it at night. You do it during the day. You don't worry about the weather. You fish whatever weather. I've caught them whenever it was 35. I've run them when it was 35 degrees outside, and I've run them when it was 95, 100 degrees outside.
Now, if go back to the wind thing for a second. If it was a really windy day, would you still go with the adjustable noodle? at that point, or would you be more inclined to run ones that didn't have that weren't stuck on the bottom?
I'm going to run that adjustable noodle every time.
I got you.
Because I can take that noodle and draw it up to where it's only 5 feet deep.
Well, sure.
But if
But
I've got one that only has 5 foot of line on it, I can't make it work down there in 30 feet of water.
That's fair. The only other thing I was going to say with the adjustable one, though, if you like you just said, you could bring it up and use the advantage of the wind if you wanted to drift it. But I guess another benefit to the adjustable one is you really do know when a fish just swims off with it because you know where it was.
Yeah.
So unless a big boat goes by and washes it, you actually do know for sure if it moved off and away. So that's sure. That's for sure. Let's see.
And we caught fish that day from 3/4 of a pound up to what, 15 pounds?
Something like that, yeah. And they were in all types of water depths too.
And we had the trifecta. We had the channel.
We did. Yep, we did catch all three. It is definitely not biased towards any one species, for sure. We did catch more blues, I guess, but I guess arguably blues are a little more mobile, so that makes makes sense. But obviously, certain techniques definitely seem to be more inclined for certain species, but it definitely works for all three. One thing we didn't go over though, how do you know when a catfish is taking the bait on a jug?
Sometimes you don't.
I mean that's fair, but say if you do see one,
a jug is nothing more than a float or a bobber, and that jug will stand up, and it'll stand straight up and down and disappear. If it's a bigger fish, if it's a little fish, it'll just sit there and just one end of it will just twitch a little bit, but it'll make a ring out of it, just like a on a float.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll just take off and go swimming. It'd go take off across the lake, and you got to chase them down. We had that happen a couple of times.
We did have that happen a couple of times. That flathead probably ran the furthest that Shana caught. The other one that ran quite a good bit was the one that I lost. That was definitely one thing we'll go over in a moment that caused it to happen, but there was definitely one that I definitely pulled the hook out of. One thing I found out very quickly fishing with you guys is that, especially with the adjustable jugs, the amount of slack in the line will make or break the trip. You want that line to be tight with that sinker, so you actually get the full force of the noodle to set the hook on that circle hook. And I do believe that's what cost me that fish, because there was a lot of slack in that line. I had the noodle in my hand, and the fish was definitely 15 or 20 feet to the left or right. And had him for a second, and then I felt the hook pull out. So I think that probably was a flathead hooked in a tooth patch, because it did not move to the corner of the mouth.
That area right through there is known for flatheads.
Yeah, and like I said, the way it felt for a second, it definitely. I've only ever caught a few flatheads, but definitely felt like it was. I'm not gonna say a big flathead, but at least just a flathead in general, because it was. Blues and channels, you get a lot of head shakes. The flathead is just straight pull, more so than the other two, and that's definitely what I was feeling. But then, like I said, I felt it pop off, so I was a little depressed on that part, obviously, but it's just part of it.
You really want to watch that. You want that float with as little slack in that line as possible.
You basically, I would say when you let it go. I mean, obviously, if you're in current, there's going to be a little bit of lean on that line. But after you explained it to me, and I said that the second set, I feel like I did a lot better with the second set.
You did.
You basically want that line to be almost looking like a straight up and down below that float or below that noodle. Whereas I definitely didn't have it like that in the first area.
Well, that's like when we went to that last area and we were sitting there and we were looking at some of the far far-away jugs, and they were floating around, and we were looking at them and trying to figure out whether it was fish pulling them or if it was the wind. It was, we knew that there was too much slack in that line.
Yeah, if it moved more than like a foot, and it wasn't a fish, it was definitely a operator error.
If it's a little bit of wind, a lot of times all the jugs will be lined up in one direction. All the noodles
Right.
in one direction. If there's a little bit of wind or a fish gets on it, that jug will turn sideways or change direction, change angle, and start spinning. And if it's sitting there with a lot of slack in the line and the fish gets on it, you don't have a clue.
Right. No, it definitely makes sense. I definitely didn't think that part through. Mrs. Adventure said she would not jug fish in gator territory. You actually, it's pretty funny that you mentioned that. I came across a video a while back of a guy. He was jug fishing from a kayak, and he was bringing this jug in. I know I talked to you about that day, Randy. That was about that same video, but he was jug fishing from a kayak, and he went to pull it up, and the head on this gator had to have at least been 1.5 feet. It was a big gator.
Yep.
All he did was drop the noodle and went nope, and was just pedaling as fast as he could with a pedal kayak to get away from that.
I've seen that one. Yeah, that would freak me out on my kayak.
Yeah, but I say I'm pretty sure I let the gator have the noodle and just get it whenever the line was broke finally.
Yep.
Let's see. That one doesn't apply. We talked about that one. What are some, you would say, common mistakes other than slack line that some people need to know about when they're jug fishing that maybe have better success with it?
Too light of a weight. Another thing is there's, like I said earlier, there's 3 sizes of pool noodles. You got one that big around, you got one that big around, you got one that big around. The medium size seems to work better, and the only thing I can put to that is I use more of them.
Okay.
Because I can't imagine that the medium would be any better than the big one. But the smaller ones, you don't have as good a hookup success with them.
Not as much flotation. That makes sense.
Yeah. And don't go with too heavy of a line. You don't need 70 or 100-pound test line, because you've got the shock absorbency of your shoulders. If you get one of them down in a tree and you got to tie it to the boat to get it to pull it out, you're going to break it regardless whether it's 100-pound. It's whether you want to cause damage tearing it out with a 100-pound line or breaking it with a 50.
Right. For sure.
But really, it's a real simple way to fish. It's a real simple way to cover a huge amount of territory.
Lisa, you still with us? You awake over there?
I'm awake.
We cover. There's a church group that comes down here out of Kentucky every year, and they will run 300 jugs in one arm of the lake up here. And they sit there and they fish for 2.5 days. They will take a pickup bed of fish home. You can go in and decimate an area. There, you can get carried away with jug fishing and decimate an area if you want to. It's no different than commercial fishing as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Other than the fact you can do it by yourself or with a small group.
Yeah.
And like you said, you guys catch, photo, release. You're not keeping everything, so you guys aren't necessarily doing that. But I could definitely see how it could very easily be a problem for somebody who's not paying attention or whatever.
We've caught 2 fish in the last year, and they were eating size, and that's it.
But I say Lisa doesn't eat catfish, if I heard her correctly. So, which is all fine and dandy. I will say, at least in Tennessee, you do have that limit of you can only keep 2 above 32 inches. So that does limit some of the decimation of at least a bigger population of fish.
These commercial guys come in and they don't care.
Well, those guys don't. I don't think those guys have the same limitations as we do.
They don't.
Yeah.
But you can still come in and decimate an area.
Oh, sure. I just meant like in terms of like the church group with 300 jugs. I mean, they can only keep so many fish above 32 inches that way.
Yeah, but they can only keep so many per person.
That's true.
Per boat, and I have talked to them. I've seen them down there 2 different years, and I talked to them. In the first year, they were keeping everything down there.
Man,
and me and one of the guys was standing around talking. I mean, they had a truck bed iced down with a layer of ice, a layer of fish, another layer of ice, and me and him talked, and I begged him not to kill everything out there, and they were not keeping as many big fish the second time around because a big fish ain't fit to eat most of the time,
right?
But
obviously handling fish is the same as with rod and reel. Is there anything that you would say is a restriction in terms of, I don't know, maybe a guideline for what maybe the maximum amount of jugs? You said 30 is probably enough for you, but you've been experienced. If you had somebody that was just starting out, what would be probably a good number for them?
10, 12.
And you want to go kind of over what you do in terms of spot location? I mean, obviously, I know you're using your fish finder to pinpoint little things within an area, but say you were looking for just a big area to start in. Where would you suggest starting?
No different than you do if you're fishing with a rod and reel. I study my maps. I've got Navionics and I've got the sea maps that are on my depth finder, and I look for points. I look for drop offs. I look for deep holes. I look for humps. Road beds, submerged bridges are excellent. And the day that we were out there, we were fishing. We caught fish in really 2 areas, three small areas. We had one little brush pile that produced a couple of fish.
Yep, I remember that one.
We had a road bed, and that was right on the edge, right on the channel drop, and
right at the creek arm, yeah.
Yeah, and then we had a point.
That rocky point was what produced that flathead.
Yep. I fish the same way. You chase, you chase bait fish.
Oh, wait. There's another piece of essential gear we didn't talk about. If you're going to cover a very large area, binoculars.
Oh,
that is a huge difference, man. I'm getting old myself. Not as old, but old in relation. What's that face for, Lisa? I am not 16 anymore, okay? I can't see everything.
Younger.
I am not invincible or bulletproof. I do wear glasses, all right? And the binoculars made a huge difference. It was just a creek arm, but if you were fishing at the front and at the back and you're looking for noodles that are laying down, because they, like you said, they don't always bob straight up, the binoculars made a huge difference, for sure.
We were fishing, 300 yards from...
Probably.
Covering at least 300 yards.
Yeah, I would say so. Something like that, for sure. Let's see. We talked about that already. We did talk about the fact that blue cats are probably the most common types of catfish. That's pretty much any kind of time you're moving bait or covering large amounts of water, you're going to have that because they're so mobile. You do the adjustable jugs, so it doesn't matter so much. If you were doing fixed jugs, what would probably, if you say somebody would want to do only fixed jugs, they were wanting to let it drift, whether it be in the river or whether it be just with the wind, what would you think would be a good number depth-wise for them to set those at?
they're so hard to keep up with.
I know you're not recommending it, but if say that was what they were determined that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah, but if they were experienced at running them, 30 jugs. It depends if it's a lot of wind or a lot of current. 30 would be the maximum. If it's or if it was no wind, you can run 30 or 40 of them, 50 of them.
I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. I meant talking for the depth set on the jugs.
Oh, depths?
Yeah, if you're doing a fixed jug, what would be like the perfect depth to do, in your opinion?
4 foot. Maybe
4 foot.
Yeah, 4 to 5 foot at the most.
I got you. Let's see. Bobby said I need the ones that have the jugs that trigger flashing lights and sirens on them when a fish hits. I'm not quite that blind. But
Hey, we have tried every kind of light that you could think of to put on them, where that they would show up better at night.
I bet the only thing I can think of, if I was making my own, I might consider putting a little flag on them to see them stand up better. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. But that's a big maybe. Is there anything you can do to prevent other wildlife like turtles or birds from interfering with the jug?
No.
Or is it?
I caught a bat last summer on the jug. It
caught
flew
a bat?
in, and a bat. The jug was laying on the water, and he flew in after an insect or something and hit that jug, and was stuck to it.
Wow.
You can't, it's like fishing with anything else. So if you got to deal with the turtles, ain't nothing you can do about it. You got to deal with ducks and geese and stuff like that. We had a goose come right through the middle of our spread. Didn't pay no attention to it and didn't affect it any. I mean, we had a couple of jugs that we set up inside a bunch of duck decoys.
Yeah, we did do that.
And I mean, so really there's not a lot that you can do to protect anything anymore, other than just being courteous, common sense, and paying attention.
Sure. Hey, Zach, you got anything to ask him about while you're here, sir?
You need a kitten?
No, I do not need a kid. Let's see. What else we got here?
I'm sorry, I've been kind of spaced out for the last 20 minutes.
You're good, man. You're good.
I can't believe my cat decided to have kittens in the
middle of the
live stream.
Yeah, well, let's see. How do you handle larger catfish that you caught on a jug? If you had to recommend for somebody that was trying to figure it out,
Make sure you got a big enough dip net with a long handle.
so no different than regular fishing from a boat, then.
No.
I got you. Is there any specific time of day that you think is better for jug fishing?
Nope. We catch as many fish from noon to 6 p.m. as we do any other time of day. Me and my nephew used to meet where that we took you the other day, and we would meet over there at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon and fish till 6:30, and then go home.
I got you.
And again, it was all catch and release.
What would be some signs that would say it's time to move to a different area or deploy jugs in a different area? Obviously, I know that day we fished the one area for 3 hours, and then when they quit biting, we finally moved. But was that due to just trying to find other fish? Like, we obviously could have stayed at catching probably because there's still marking fish. But what would be a reason to move?
Boat traffic picking up in an area. The second creek that we went to, if boat traffic had moved up in there, we would have just picked up and moved.
Okay.
The first creek we were in, they were running in and out of there. Bass fishermen were literally fishing the point that our jugs was on.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't interfere with them, and they don't interfere with me. Other than if you go an hour without a bite, you need to be looking at moving or looking at where the fish have moved to. That day we could have got out there with the depth finder and worked and probably found some more fish around there close rather than moving up that other creek.
Mm-hmm.
But we've caught some good fish up there, some unique fish up there, and that's the reason I wanted to go back up there. I
got you. When he's speaking about unique fish, guys, he's caught piebalgs in that creek. He's caught albinos in that. Well, I say they've caught albinos in that creek. They've caught piebalgs in that creek. Obviously, they caught all 3 species in that creek. And that one creek in particular was known for producing 20, 30-pound fish on a fairly regular basis. So it was the move for the big fish. It didn't pay off that day, but it happens. It is called fishing, not catching. Bobby says a good pair of gloves is also a piece of equipment.
Most definitely.
All right, so let's just backtrack a little bit. For those that are still with us, gear for starting on jug fishing, you need your jugs. You need some sort of a grabbing device, whether it be you do it by hand over the edge, a stick with screws in it, or a gaff, or some sort of hook like that to be able to catch the rope.
A gaff is hard to work with because the line will not grab and hold. It'll pull through your jug.
Okay.
The jug will pull through the loop in it and all if you're using a gaff that's big enough to serve as a gaff.
I got you.
So a gaff, I've got one of them at my dad's house, but I don't use it.
I got you.
But a good pair of gloves is definitely.
So gloves, a dip net for big fish, some sort of grabbing device, the jugs themselves, some sort of vessel to be able to deploy them well with, or just feet to do it in a creek. I'm missing something. So just those 6 things?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what else. Why don't you kind of go over how you handle and store jugs when you're not using them? Because that was definitely a unique way. I've seen people just do piles of jugs on a boat. I've also seen people just do not just piles. It's really all I've ever seen. You guys definitely had the unique and most organized system I've seen personally.
Okay, let me see. Let me see what I got over here.
While he's gone, Lisa, do you have anything to add? Any comments? Any funny stuff?
Okay, our jugs, we have I think it is a 35-gallon tote. Let's see here, let me get over here. Say this is our line. I'll take and poke a hole through my jug. Poke a hole through the jug.
Camera's right there.
I know it. Poke a hole through the jug. Tie my line right here. Whenever we get ready to pull the jugs, I got my jug right here, my rope tied on it. I wrap it around, and my hook, I'll hold it here, and I'll go ahead and wrap the sinker up. And then my sinker will be right here. My hook's right here. I take my hook and I hook it over the. I hook
it's over the sinker line.
It is. I hook it up here on top of across the line that the sinker's on, and that keeps it from unraveling. But we keep them stuck straight up and down in that tote.
It looks like a box of crayons. So that's what it reminded me of, was a box of crayons.
And it don't take up that much space at all. I mean, we got 40. I think we got 37 in that crate right now, 38, and it don't take up no space.
Yeah, you definitely could have 2 of those on that boat easy if you wanted to. Because like you said, 30 is kind of like the sweet spot.
It depends on how many people you got. With me and my dad, I'll guarantee you, with me and my dad and Lisa, we could run 45 or 50 with no problem. But that's 3 experienced people doing it.
Sure.
With
When you're taking newbies out, it's a little different.
I must say we used what, 25 maybe?
we use 25.
Yeah. So
Or I'm lying. We
No,
used
we used all but 3.
we used 32 of them.
so I'm not a newbie anymore, huh?
Oh yeah, you're a newbie. I just had somebody up on the front of the boat taking care of you.
Yeah, well,
He was not a very good student that day.
Well, I tried, okay? I tried. I'd say another 100 jugs I finally figured out the tight line part. Because probably at least 50% of the first batch were not good. I would say probably 30% of the second batch. So if you go by that, eventually I'd got down to less than 10% of bad jugs.
I would like, after getting into chasing big fish like we have with rod and reel, I would like to take some of these large noodles that I've got. This is a large size. I'd like to take some of them and put 100 feet of line on them and drop them in some of these 60, 70, 75 foot holes.
It would be interesting to say the least.
And I know there's a lot of people that had a conniption when that kid caught a New World, 140 plus pound fish on limb line or trot line or whatever a couple 3 weeks ago.
It's still a legal form of fishing.
Hey, I don't care about the record. It wouldn't make no difference to me. I would love to see about getting one. I would love to have bragging rights that I caught one that big. Yeah, I caught it on the jug, but I caught it.
Right. I will say, he couldn't get the IGFA record because I'm pretty sure those are all rod and reel records. But still, if it's a legal form of fishing in that state, there's no reason why I shouldn't apply. I don't think the conniption was exactly deserved, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
No.
Like I said, I personally, you're not going to be able to get a line class record or anything like that because you're using that's for rod and reels.
Right.
But man,
like you said, bragging rights.
I want to have bragging rights. I want to be able to say, hey, look, I know there's 100-pound fish in here because I've caught them.
I'd just love to see one that big.
Right. Well, supposedly the state record in Tennessee for commercial fishing for blue catfish is 180, either 180 or 182 pounds. So, there's almost 200-pound fish in Tennessee.
Yeah.
When it comes to catfish. And if you're doing any kind of technique for catfish, you have that chance to get one. Obviously, might take more skill to catch one on a lighter line. But if you're going out there, the right gear and the right equipment, it's definitely something doable for anybody out there.
You put a hook in the water, you stand a chance.
Yeah, exactly. Is there anything else that you want to add for anybody who's looking to get into jug fishing that we may or may not have covered, or that we maybe didn't cover enough you want to add to?
One thing, people badmouth jug fishing, but let me tell you what, it's fun, and it's a good way to get people hooked on fishing, get young people hooked on it. I told you the day that we were out there, my son is not a fisherman. He's not that interested in it. Now, he will go jug fishing with me, though, sometimes. And I'll guarantee you, jug fishing will keep somebody out of trouble because it's addicted.
It definitely is a busy technique for the most part.
Keep people interested, get people interested in the outdoors, and that'll keep our outdoors.
Yep.
If we're not careful, we're going to let the people that don't walk outside the door other than to get in their car to go to work and back home, we're going to let them control us and take our rights away to be able to hunt and fish.
Yeah, that is true. I know.
Treat your fish with respect.
Well, I mean, that's just, like you said, nature in general. I've always been a firm believer if you respect nature, nature will respect you. So, That's for sure. I mean, I do. Everybody does different things. For me, I try to pick up trash. For those who don't know, I actually won a trash collection challenge last year. I ended up collecting 1,100 pounds of trash from boat launches. Just goes to, I mean, it just goes to show how nasty people can be, but two, how oblivious people can be. Because I would never guess it was 1,100 pounds worth. It was just a bag here, a bag there, or maybe a couple bags here. But it definitely adds up. And yes, if you don't protect what you love, yes, it will get taken away from you. That is a fact.
That's one of the things, like on our boat. There is a trash bucket on there, and it's there for a reason. It ain't, don't let your stuff go in the water.
Yeah, I definitely think it was definitely well set up, and for the jug fishing too. I mean, you have it set up for everything. You could do anything you wanted with that. You could drag with it if you wanted to. You could suspend fish with it. You have rod holders everywhere. But for jug fishing, having that big open platform on the front by removing those two bench seats, that definitely was handy. I think probably the only thing that was in the way was actually your trolling motor.
And I don't know any other way to There's one guy that was supposed to send me some video on how to mount it on the back of the boat where it would actually fold down. But I haven't figured that out yet, because if you raise it all the way up and it's standing up on the side, it still drags the water.
Right. Yeah, it's
if you got any suggestions on what to do with that trolling motor, I'd appreciate it.
But I don't. But maybe somebody out there does. If you guys know a way to mount a trolling motor on a pontoon boat where it's not going across the front of the deck, let us know. We would love to hear some of your ideas and try to get him helped out. It is definitely.
I can't say anything on that because ours is attached to the deck.
Right.
Yeah, ours is attached to the deck.
But if there was definitely a way to do it, it would definitely be something to consider for sure. The only thing I could really think of is maybe like a swivel connection, or maybe do like the kayak guys do have some sort of a quick release where you can pull it out, maybe set it inside the cage to the right or to the left out of the way. But I mean, you guys, if you're using it, obviously you need it. But if you're using the big motor a lot, maybe having a quick disconnect or something to move it. Yeah. But that'd be the only thing I can think of right now.
Yeah, and I mean, and we're planning on doing some dragging.
Dragging is my favorite technique. When you're ready to do it, you let me know, and I'll tell you how to do it.
It's definitely another technique out there that it can be useful for sure, and definitely something we'll have to cover in another episode for those out there. And just like, I mean, you can jug. I'm sure you can anyway. I'm sure you can jug fish for pretty much any species you wanted to. Obviously, today we were talking catfish, but I know people that jug fish with the shallower jug specifically for striped bass or for white bass, especially down there below the dams. They're trying to just go through the schools of fish quick and then go pick up and go drop them again. They're not really chasing catfish with those jugs. They're chasing anything else they can get their hands on. Obviously, if you wanted to, you could probably chase gar on the regular with them. Just again, you have them set real shallow. As with any other fishing technique, you can manipulate it to be used for any other kind of fish. People have been dragging for walleyes and for crappie for forever. They call it a little bit different names and set up a little bit different, but it's the same general idea. But they've been doing that stuff for years. It's not anything unheard of or new per se. It's just another technique that people need to learn about. Same with jug fishing. Lisa, I'm going to ask you again because you've been so quiet, so patient, so lovely on screen, on panel tonight. Do you have anything else to add to this conversation?
Listen to your teacher next time you come down here.
I will do my best.
You horrible student, you.
I am a horrible student, yes. My wife even commented on how horrible of a student I was.
He's a little hard-headed, ain't he?
Just a little.
I told him exactly how to drop the jug, all that, told him what to look for. I also told him how to wrap the jug up, and he still He wrapped it up till he got to the hook, and then he takes the hook and hooks it on the pool noodle, and then just lays
Let
it
the
down.
sinker hang.
He
Yeah,
just
all their noodles had a foot long a sinker hanging out or more.
all these pool noodles that I had to go back and fix when we were leaving because he was a terrible student.
Wait till you see his organization skills.
Hey, look, just ignore the stuff behind me, okay? I'm still working on this office. If I ever get a chance to work on it again, like I said, I've been working a lot lately, and I still try to get my fishing in, so a lot of stuff's been put on the back burner. But as is life. If anybody out here in the crowd's got any more questions to ask the Swains, feel free to put it in here. Mrs. Adventure said goodnight a little while ago. I did miss that. I do appreciate her coming in as well.
Hey, Bobby, you mentioned dynamite. Now I'm going to ask you something other. Have you ever actually used it, or you just mouthing about it?
Oh no, is this one of those half a century ago it was okay things again?
Yeah.
If it goes boom, anything like tannerite, I know I'm gonna like it.
Jeez.
We'll have this conversation in person.
Yeah, that's fair. Because I have a feeling that it's going to get somebody in trouble. But hey, with that being said, there's no more questions popping in. I do appreciate everybody coming in and checking it out. I do appreciate Randy and Lisa for coming in. For those who didn't get to the beginning of the show or coming in late, we talked about alternative types of catfishing, including limb lining, trot lining, noodling, just some stuff that's non-rod and reel. It's not necessarily automatic commercial fishing. We're not talking about dragging nets. We're not talking about gill netting, anything like that. Then we move specifically to jug fishing, which is these guys' forte. They've been doing that. They've only actually been consistently rod reel fishing for catfish since December. So they've only been doing it for 5.5 months at this point, consistently anyway. And so this was definitely their go-to thing, and it still is their go-to thing for having a good time. I did get the chance to go fishing with them, so I did actually get to experience this stuff firsthand, which is really cool. I don't have a strong opinion on it yet, obviously, because I just started, but it definitely opened my eyes. It's definitely a viable technique I would consider doing again in the future. If you guys are enjoying the show, still enjoying the topics, enjoying the special guests, please let us know. If you are watching us on YouTube on the Yakster Outdoors channel, we will not be continuing to stream it on the Yakster Outdoors channel. It will move to the Bait Tank YouTube channel. I will start posting that link more for everybody. Please feel free to subscribe to that new channel. That's where the show will be permanently. I'm going to do a few more episodes on the Yakster Outdoors channel. Eventually, it's going to shift all over to that, just because we're taking the Yakster Outdoors channel into a slightly different direction. Still fishing, just kind of a different style of video and stuff, and we just want to keep everything organized and separate. So do appreciate that. If you guys have any questions and missed the live show, have questions, feel free to message us at thebaittank@yahoo.com. Or leave a comment below this video, and we'll get them answered as fast as we can. Randy, Lisa, you got anything else to say to the crowd?
See you next time.
All right. Well, there you have it.
Thank you for coming in tonight.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. You guys, thanks for coming in and talking to us. Thanks again for taking me fishing the other day and letting me experience that. Zach, you got anything else to say, sir?
I want to go jug fishing now.
You should. You should. It's definitely something different for sure.
Not in gator-infested water, apparently. But
yeah.
How far from Chattanooga are you?
2.5 hours.
Okay.
I'm in Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, in that case, I'll just have you meet us up at Percy Priest up in Nashville.
Oh yeah, that's only like an hour. I gotta head back to Nashville in the morning for my reptile show.
Yeah. Well,
So
I grew up down that way, so I know the water down there too. I know some great flathead holes down there. I can help you break the PB on flathead down there.
Your wisdom and experience is showing again, Randy. All right, y'all. We're gonna end this episode on a high note. Thanks for coming in. See y'all next time. Tight lines. Remember, it is fishing, not catching. But you watch the show, maybe we can get more catching done than fishing. And we'll see y'all next time. Have a good one.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Where's the clip? There it is.